Greetings, everybody. Strategic Sage here with some more AI War 2 patch news. And part of it you can see right on the screen in front of you. Obviously, the old main screen is gone, and that's true for the entire UI has been revamped. We're looking at the inside of a transport flagship here, hangar bay of some sort, as we have various ships launching off into the galaxy. In the broader picture, multiplayer is in late alpha. Not quite to beta yet, but it shouldn't be too much longer until it gets there. Then they're going to be having Zenith Onslaught DLC still scheduled for January, although I think it might slip to later. And there is going to be a third DLC at some point later in 2021, Neinzul Abyss. Many people request the Neinzul, they're going to be coming back. There's going to be lots of other stuff getting in there, which I won't be able to discuss for quite a while, but I will talk about it when time is appropriate. So if we look at some other things that are going on, you can see the difference in the texturing of the screen. It's just not quite as bland. Most people have approved of it being a little more inviting. We got the nebula backgrounds here, different coloring for the side panels, etc. We also have a couple of new options. Under Galaxy Design here, we've got the beacons. You can turn them off if you wish for various reasons. And then we also have Tsunami CPAs are now the default as opposed to the older weaker but more dangerous as they hurtle up in the threat type of CPAs. Most people seem to have approved of the Tsunami change, and they definitely like that as a default going forward. And then we have some other issues. There's a new mod, the included mod, Kaiser's Marauders by Shalimbo. I haven't messed with that, but it's been described in short as Marauders Gone Crazy. Revamped Marauder variant. Feel free to pause the video and take a look at that if you're interested in more information there. And there is a new quick start which is showing off something coming up, I think, in the Zenith Onslaught DLC, which relates to being able to put random factions in. The Rogue Badger. Now, if you start this one, unless you load it in the lobby and start looking at everything, you do not know which factions are coming after you until you actually get into the game a little bit further and encounter them. And that's to facilitate the idea of just having random factions in a game and not knowing what's happening. Instead of crafting your own adventure, you're just sort of taking whatever the game is going to throw at you. So I'm going to be curious to see how all of that eventually shakes out as well. There have also been the usual tweaks to various factions, mechanics, etc. The Astro Train, Darkspire, and Marauder in particular have been tweaked as of late. Galaxy Generation, if you take a look at like this planet here, for example, the neighboring fleets guaranteed to have at least 3 ship lines in them now. They could have just 2 before, so they want to make sure you have a fairly friendly one close by. You don't get hit too hard by the RNG right on Galaxy Generation. That's something that's been put in. We have color coding on, say, the ARS and the GCAs to the neighboring fleets, etc. And specifically what I'm talking about here is, if you look at this one, you can see the Ion Disruptor frigate, that one of those ships, that is in bright green. Stingrays, metabolizing gang saws, Raptors much darker. That indicates that those ships, the ones in darker green, didn't get a particularly good roll here. So we can see here is pretty good rolls on all of these ships. Well, that's nice for us. These are pretty good. The GCAs, obviously 5 turrets are always good. Over here, those are pretty good as well. So most of the ones we can see right here are positive, but again, not so much for this one. The iBots there are kind of an in-between color, so really, other than the frigate, all the other ones are fairly weak in terms of the numbers. Now, that is not something I usually worry about that much. I'm more looking for the type of ship, but it can be very helpful, especially if you're newer to the game. Another big option, or not option rather, but change, has been on how the drones work. If we pop in here, we've just begun invading this system, and if we bring in our drone fleet, you can't actually see the drones in the fleets currently. Now this is still being adjusted and implemented, but essentially the support fleets have hidden drone guns, if you will, that will only activate and start sending out drones if you are within a certain range of the enemy. So we can sit here and leave this fleet here forever and nothing will happen. But if we move up this way, once it gets close beyond a certain point, all of a sudden the support ship will start spitting out drones. And now the reason for this change is for things like the saboteur drones, and there are some other types. People didn't want them aggroing all the guard posts in a system. But I'm not a big fan of this implementation myself because I like to keep the support fleet out of combat. As you can see, now that they're close enough, they're starting to spit out their decoy drones. I prefer to keep it way on the edge of the system so that it's away from the enemy and have, like, the decoy drones or whatever fly all over. So I can't really use it that way anymore. To me, it feels like they fixed one problem and created another. I've suggested on Mantis reverting it or finding another alternative. And I'm hoping it gets improved, but beyond that, this is the way it is at the current moment. And nobody's going to agree with every change that's made in the game, so I'm not throwing a fit. It's just, it's not something that really fits well for me. And there's been at least one other player who's mentioned they're not a big fan of the change as well. Other people like it. So that is what it is. As always, I'll have the patch notes in the description here if people want to go comment on that themselves. But that pretty much is where we're at. I mean, the whole UI getting revamped is a big major change. The news about the Zenith Onslaught and Neinzul DLC, and then, you know, the whole random factions thing coming. A couple of new options. Quite a bit, really, in the last couple of weeks. Going forward, I'll have more patch news that is warranted. Till then, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you around.